My name is Mary. I am 42 years old. I live in a small house in a quiet town. I have been married for 20 years. I thought I knew my husband well. His name is Peter. We have 2 children. They are teenagers now. They spend most of their time with friends. So often, it is just me and my husband in the house. Peter is a very lazy man. He likes to sit on the couch all day. He watches TV, drinks soda, and sometimes sleeps. He never helps me with the house. He does not cook. He does not clean. He does not shop. When I ask for help, he says, "I am tired. Leave me alone." It makes me sad and angry. Sometimes I call him lazy to his face, but he just laughs and goes back to the TV. My dear friend, before I tell you more, I ask you to please subscribe, like, and share this story. Comment if you also want to learn English with real emotional stories. Your support helps me a lot. When I was young, I dreamed about a happy marriage. I thought my husband and I would grow old together with love and respect. I thought we would sit together in the evenings, talk, and share warm tea. But life did not become like that. Our marriage became cold. We live together more like strangers. We have no passion. We only stay together because of habit and the children. Many times I asked myself, why do I still live with him? But then I thought about the years we spent together. I thought about the children. I thought about the past when we were young and laughed a lot. I hoped maybe he would change one day, but year after year, he stayed the same. He did nothing. He only lived for the couch, the TV, and his rest. One Sunday morning, I wanted to go shopping. I put on my jacket and shoes, but then I remembered my bank card was in another jacket in the bedroom. I took off my coat and started to search. At that moment, I heard Peter's voice from the living room. He spoke very softly. His voice was not like his normal voice. It was sweet. I stopped and listened. "Yes, darling," he said. "I will see you tomorrow." My body felt weak. My hands shook. He never used the word darling with me. He never called me sweet names. Never. My heart started to beat fast. I felt frozen. I pressed my back against the wall and listened more. "Yes, I miss you too," he said. His voice was soft and warm. He sounded like another man, not like my husband. I could not believe it. Was he talking to another woman? My mind was racing. I almost dropped my jacket. My eyes filled with tears. I wanted to scream, but I kept quiet. When he ended the call, I walked into the living room. He was still holding his phone. He looked shocked when he saw me. His face went pale. I asked him in a strong voice, "Who were you talking to?" He opened his mouth, but no words came. He looked like a child caught in a lie. Finally, he whispered, "She is my woman." I stared at him in disbelief. "You mean a mistress?" I asked loudly. He nodded his head slowly. He did not even try to hide it. He said, "Yes, sometimes I see her." I felt my knees shake. I almost fell on the floor. I said, "You cannot fix a chair. You cannot walk to the shop. But you can meet a woman? How is this possible?" He looked down and said, "She makes me feel alive." I could not believe what I was hearing. I gave him 20 years of my life. I raised his children. I cooked for him. I washed his clothes. I cleaned his house. and now he told me another woman makes him feel alive. I felt destroyed. I wiped my tears and said, "Call her. Tell her you are coming today. Not tomorrow. Today." He looked at me with big eyes. "What? Today?" he asked. I shouted, "Yes! Go to her. Run. Walk. I do not care. Just go. I do not want you here." He sat on the couch and looked sad. "But this is my home," he said. I shook my head. "Not anymore. You broke it. You killed it. Go to your mistress. I need to think about my life." He stood up slowly and left the house. I sat down at the table. I put my hands on my face and cried hard. Tears ran down my cheeks. My heart was heavy with pain. I whispered to myself, 20 years, and now this. I looked at the empty couch. For so many years, he was always there. Now, it was empty. It looked strange. It felt cold. I remembered when our children were small. We were young. We laughed. We had dreams. And now I was alone with betrayal. But as I sat there, I felt something new inside me. A small fire. A small light. I said to myself, I will not live with a cheater. I will not live with a lazy man who lies. I will be free. I will start again. My voice shook, but I felt stronger. I took a deep breath. I wiped my tears. The house was quiet, but in that silence, I heard my own voice telling me to be brave. The next morning, I called my daughter. My hands were shaking. My voice was weak. I told her everything. She was silent for a moment. Then she said, "Mom, you are strong. You can leave him. You do not need a man like this. We love you." Her words gave me courage. I started to believe that maybe I could build a new life. Maybe I could stand without him. Later that day, I saw a woman outside the house. She was young. She had a big smile on her face. She was waiting for Peter. My heart beat fast. My hands shook again. I wanted to scream, but I stayed calm. I walked up to her and said, "Leave my husband. He is married to me. Do not see him again." She looked surprised. She did not say a word. Then she walked away quickly. My husband came outside and tried to talk to me, but I turned away. My anger and my sadness were too big. I did not want to hear his lies anymore. That evening we argued. I shouted at him, "You waste your life. You are lazy. You cheat on me. I cannot believe this." He said quietly, "I am sorry." I shouted again, "Sorry?" Sorry does not fix years. Sorry does not fix broken trust. He looked down and stayed silent. I cried and cried for the lost years, for the love I once gave him, for the man I thought I knew. Each tear was heavy with pain. But while I packed my clothes, books, and small things, I felt a strange strength. Each item I placed in the bag reminded me, this is my life. I will live for myself. I called a lawyer the next day. I asked about divorce. My voice shook, but I was serious. My hands trembled as I spoke, but I knew I must do it. At night I cried again, but this time the tears were different. They were not only tears of pain, they were also tears of freedom. The next morning, I woke up early. The bed felt cold and empty. For many years, Peter always slept next to me. But now he was gone. I looked at his side of the bed. The pillow was still there. The blanket was on the floor. I touched the pillow. It was cold. I sat for a long time in silence. Then I stood up and went to the kitchen. I made tea for myself. I sat at the small table and looked out the window. The street was quiet. Children were walking to school. A man was walking his dog. A car passed slowly. Life outside looked normal. But inside my house, nothing was normal. I felt lost. I felt alone. But I also felt something new. I felt a small piece of freedom. I could breathe without him. Later that day, Peter came back to the house. He opened the door and walked inside as if nothing happened. He looked tired. He sat on the couch again. I looked at him with anger. "Why are you here?" I asked. He said, "This is still my home." His voice was low. His eyes looked at the floor. I said firmly, "Not anymore. You made your choice. You chose another woman. Go and live with her." He looked at me with a sad face. "I do not want to leave this house," he said. I shouted, "You already left me when you betrayed me. You already left when you lied. Get out." He stood up slowly. He did not argue. He walked out the door. I heard his steps fade away. I sat down again. My body was shaking, but I felt stronger. In the afternoon, my son came home from school. He saw my red eyes and asked, "Mom, what is wrong?" I hugged him and whispered, "Your father has another woman." He looked shocked. His face turned red. He said, "How can he do this to you?" You gave him everything. Tears filled his eyes. I held him close and said, "We will be fine. We are strong." He nodded slowly. He tried to be brave, but I saw pain in his eyes too. Later, my daughter came home. I told her as well. She hugged me tightly and said, "Mom, you must not stay with him. You deserve better. We are with you." Her words gave me power. For the first time, I felt that I was not alone. My children were on my side. That night, I could not sleep. I walked around the house. Every room had memories. In the living room, I saw the old couch. I remembered many evenings when I cooked dinner and he sat there, watching TV, not even looking at me. In the kitchen, I remembered the times I ate alone while he drank beer. In the bedroom, I remembered the empty nights when he turned his back and fell asleep without a word. These memories hurt me, but they also showed me the truth. He had not been a husband for many years. I was living with a stranger. The next day, I called the lawyer again. I asked about divorce papers. I asked how to divide the house. I asked about my rights. The lawyer explained everything in simple words. My hands were still shaking, but I listened carefully. When the call ended, I felt scared. Divorce is not easy. Divorce is not simple. But I knew I had no choice. I could not live with a man who betrayed me. That evening, Peter came again. He knocked on the door. I opened it slowly. He looked weak. His clothes were not clean. His hair was messy. He said, "Please let me stay. I am sorry. I will change." I looked into his eyes. I did not see love. I only saw fear. He was not sorry for me. He was only afraid to be alone. I said, "You said another woman makes you feel alive. Go to her. Leave me." He grabbed my arm. His hand was shaking. "I will stop seeing her," he said. "Please forgive me." I pulled my arm away. I said, "Forgiveness is not possible. You broke my trust. You broke my heart. Go." He looked down and walked away again. I closed the door and locked it. After he left, I sat on the bed. Tears came again. I cried for the years I lost. I cried for the love I gave. I cried for the hope that was now gone. But with each tear, I felt a little lighter. Each tear washed away some pain. I told myself, this pain will not last forever. I will heal. I will be free. The next morning, my daughter made breakfast. She put tea and bread on the table. She said, "Mom, you need to eat. You must be strong." I smiled at her weakly. I took a small bite. It was hard to eat, but I wanted to show her that I was trying. My son said, "Mom, we are with you. We will help you." His voice was serious. I looked at both of them. My eyes filled with tears again, but this time they were tears of love. I said, "Thank you, my children. You give me strength." Days passed slowly. I went to the lawyer's office. I signed papers. My hands shook, but I signed. I signed my freedom. The lawyer said, "Now the process begins." I walked out of the office. The sun was shining. The air was fresh. I took a deep breath. For the first time in many years, I felt the air in my lungs without fear. I whispered to myself, "I am ready." Peter tried to call me many times. I did not answer. He left messages. He said he was sorry. He said he missed me. He said he wanted to come back. But I deleted the messages. I knew his words were empty. He would not change. He never helped me before. He never respected me before. He only thought about himself. I did not want to hear his lies anymore. One evening, I sat with my daughter in the living room. She looked at me and said, "Mom, do you remember when I was small? You always told me to be strong. You always told me never to accept lies. Now, it is your time to be strong." Her words touched me. I smiled at her and said, "You are right. It is my time now." My son joined us. He said, "We will always be with you, Mom. Do not be afraid." I hugged them both. For the first time, I felt safe. Not because of a husband, but because of my children. That night, I slept better. I dreamed of a small house, quiet and peaceful. I dreamed of mornings where I wake up and smile. I dreamed of evenings where I drink tea and read a book without fear, without lies. When I woke up, I knew these dreams could come true. I only had to keep going forward. The divorce papers took weeks. Each day felt long, but with each day, I felt stronger. I started to take small walks outside. I met a neighbor and said hello. I looked at the flowers in the gardens. I watched children play in the street. These small things gave me peace. They reminded me that life goes on. Even when one part ends, another part begins. The day of the divorce came. I put on a simple dress and walked to the court with my daughter. My son wanted to come too, but I told him to stay at school. I did not want him to miss his lessons. My daughter held my hand as we walked. My heart was beating fast. I was nervous, but I also felt strong. I wanted to end this chapter of my life. When we entered the court, Peter was already there. He looked older than before. His face was tired. His eyes were dark. He looked at me, but I turned my face away. I did not want to see him. I did not want to hear his words. The judge asked simple questions. I answered clearly. My voice was calm. Peter spoke too, but his voice was weak. In less than 1 hour, it was finished. The judge said, "The marriage is ended." I felt a heavy weight leave my shoulders. I took a deep breath. My daughter squeezed my hand and whispered, "It is over, Mom." Tears filled my eyes, but they were not only tears of pain. They were also tears of freedom. When we came back home, the house felt different. It was the same walls, the same furniture, but it was no longer a prison. It was mine. For the first time in many years, I felt safe in my own home. I walked from room to room. I touched the walls. I opened the windows. Fresh air came inside. The air felt new. I whispered, "This is my life now." The first days after the divorce were hard. At night, the silence was heavy. I sometimes missed the sound of another person in the house. I sometimes felt lonely. But I told myself, being alone is better than living with lies. Each day I grew stronger. I cooked for myself and the children. I cleaned the house with music. I drank tea in the evenings. Small things gave me peace. One evening, I sat with my children at the table. We laughed at small jokes. We shared stories about the day. My son said, "Mom, you smile more now." My daughter added, "Yes, you look free." I looked at them with love. "It is because of you," I said softly. "You gave me strength when I was weak. You helped me stand." They smiled back at me. In that moment, I knew I had made the right choice. Leaving Peter was not the end. It was a new beginning. Weeks passed. Peter tried to call again, but I blocked his number. I did not want his voice in my life. Once, I saw him on the street. He looked thin and tired. He tried to wave at me. I looked straight ahead and walked away. I felt no anger, no hate. I only felt distance. He was part of my past. I did not want him in my present or my future. Slowly, I started to do new things. I went for long walks in the park. I watched families and children play. I listened to the birds sing. I felt calm. Sometimes I sat on a bench and just watched the world. It felt good to sit without waiting for a lazy husband to move or speak. I could sit for myself. I could enjoy the quiet. I also began to talk more with my neighbors. Before, I was always too tired, too busy, or too sad. Now, I had more time. A woman next door invited me for tea. We sat in her kitchen and talked. She shared her life with me, and I shared mine with her. It felt good to have someone to listen. I was not alone anymore. One night, I sat by the window with tea in my hand. The sky was full of stars. I remembered the old days when I used to dream with Peter about the future. Those dreams were gone now, but I did not feel broken. I felt calm. I said to myself, the past is behind me. The future is open. My words were simple, but they gave me peace. Months went by. The pain became smaller. The nights felt less heavy. The mornings felt brighter. I started to wake up with energy. I cleaned. I cooked. I read small books. I laughed with my children. I listened to music. Life was not perfect, but it was mine. I was free from lies, free from betrayal. One morning, my daughter said, "Mom, do you ever want to love again?" I thought for a moment. I smiled softly. "Maybe one day," I said. "But now, I want to love myself first." She nodded and hugged me. My sons smiled and said, "That is the best answer." I laughed with them. I knew that real love starts with self-respect. On the anniversary of my divorce, I lit a small candle. I placed it on the table and sat with my children. We had tea and simple bread. I looked at the candle flame and said, "This light is for a new life. This light is for hope." My children smiled. They held my hands. We sat together in peace. I felt warm. I felt strong. I felt free. That night before I went to bed, I looked in the mirror. I saw a woman with tired eyes, but also with a strong heart. I saw a woman who had suffered but did not give up. I saw myself. I whispered, "I will be fine." And for the first time in many years, I truly believed it. My name is Sarah. I was 17 years old when this happened. It was summer when my parents sent me to my grandmother's home in another city. I was happy because I loved playing with my cousins and enjoying family dinners. But that night, something happened that I will always remember. My grandmother's house was large. It was full of people because we came together for a family wedding. The rooms were bright, and the garden was full of flowers. Everyone was busy with cooking, music, and preparing clothes. I loved weddings because they meant food, dancing, and fun with cousins. I never thought danger could come in a place full of family. Before I tell you the details, please support me by liking, sharing, and subscribing. It gives me courage to share more true stories. Do not forget to comment as well. Now back to the story where I left. I played with my younger cousins in the garden that day. We laughed, ate sweets, and ran in the sun. My grandmother sat on a chair, smiling at us. My mother helped in the kitchen with the other women. The men talked loudly about guests, cars, and work. It felt like a happy time. I had no idea what was waiting for me that night. In the evening, the wedding songs began. My cousins and I clapped to the music. The bride sat in a red dress. The family took pictures and cheered. I also wore a new dress, and my aunt told me I looked grown up. I smiled shyly because I was not used to hearing that. The food was served, and I ate until I was full. When the party ended, everyone felt tired. The children slept early, and the women cleaned the kitchen. My grandmother told me I should rest because the next day would be busy again. She said, "Sarah, You can sleep in the guest room. It is quiet there. I thanked her and walked to the room. I felt safe because it was my grandmother's house, surrounded by family. The guest room was small but clean. There was a bed in the middle and a window open to the garden. I closed the curtain, changed my dress, and lay down. I thought about the music and the bride's smile. Slowly, I felt my eyes close. But the night had other plans for me. I woke when I heard the door open. At first, I thought it was my grandmother checking on me. I whispered, "Grandmother, is that you?" But there was no answer. The room was dim, and I saw a shadow near the door. My heart started to beat fast. It was not my grandmother. It was one of the boys from the wedding. He was a relative, but not very close. He often visited with his parents. He stepped inside and closed the door slowly. I sat up and held my blanket. He smiled, but it was not a kind smile. He whispered, "Do not be afraid." "I only want to talk." I felt my body shake. I said, "Please go. It is late. You should sleep." But he moved closer to the bed. I pushed my blanket around me tightly. My hands felt weak, but I spoke louder this time. "If you come near me, I will scream. Everyone will wake up." For a moment he stopped. His face looked dark and strange. I prayed in my heart that he would leave. But then he whispered again, "Be quiet. No one will know." I felt fear rise in me. I thought about my cousins, about my grandmother. I thought about what people would say if they found me with him. My throat felt dry, but I knew I had to be strong. I pushed him back when he reached out. I shouted, "Go now, or I will scream." This time he froze. Maybe he saw I was not weak. He stepped back toward the door. I kept my eyes on him, ready to scream if he tried again. At last he opened the door and left quickly. The room was quiet again, but I could not sleep. I sat on the bed, shaking and crying softly. The night felt endless. Every sound made me afraid. I heard dogs outside, the wind in the trees, and footsteps in the hall. I thought he might come back, so I kept the blanket over me and stared at the door. I waited for the morning. When the first light of the sun touched the curtain, I felt a little safe again. At breakfast, I saw him. He sat with others, smiling and talking as if nothing had happened. He joked with my cousins and laughed with my uncles. I hated his fake smile. I stayed quiet, but my heart was heavy. I wanted to tell someone, but fear closed my mouth. I asked myself, will they believe me? Or will they say I made a mistake? The wedding went on, and the house was full of noise again. But inside me, there was no joy. I avoided him as much as I could. Still, he passed near me sometimes. His eyes followed me, and I felt my skin burn with fear. Every step I took, I thought he was behind me. At night, I locked the guest room door. I prayed he would not try again. I did not sleep well. I woke many times, checking the door and window. I kept thinking about what happened. My mind asked the same questions again and again. Why me? Why here? Did I do something wrong? But deep down, I knew the truth. I had done nothing wrong. It was all him. When I looked at my younger cousins, I felt even more worried. They were so small and innocent. I asked myself, what if he tries to hurt them one day? That thought broke me. I could not let this stay hidden. I could not stay silent. That was the moment I knew I must speak. But how would I tell my parents? How would I tell my grandmother? My voice was locked by fear. Still, I felt I could not carry it alone. I had to try. The next morning I could not smile. My cousins laughed and played, but I sat quietly. My grandmother asked me, "Sarah, are you sick?" I said no. I could not tell her the truth. My mother looked at me with worry. She asked, "Are you tired? Do you want to rest?" I only nodded. I did not know how to speak. During lunch, he was there again. He laughed with everyone and helped serve food. I looked at him and felt sick inside. He acted normal, but I knew his secret. I hated how easy it was for him to hide. He looked like family, but I now saw him as someone dangerous. I wanted to shout in front of everyone. I wanted to say, "He is not what you think." But my voice stayed silent. That afternoon I went to the garden. I sat under a tree watching children play. A little cousin sat near me with her doll. She was only 9 years old. She showed me her toy and smiled. I tried to smile back, but my heart was heavy. I thought, what if he ever tries to hurt her? That thought made me shake. I knew I could not stay quiet anymore. That night, I wrote in my notebook. I wrote about the guest room. I wrote about how he entered. I wrote about my fear and my tears. My hands shook as I wrote each word. When I finished, I hid the notebook under my pillow. I was scared, but I also felt a little stronger. The next morning, my mother found the notebook while she was fixing my bed. She opened it and saw my words. She called me into the room. Her eyes were full of questions. "Sarah, did you write this?" she asked softly. I felt my face turn red. Tears filled my eyes. I whispered, "Yes, Mama." It happened. My mother hugged me tightly. "My child, why did you not tell me?" she asked. I cried and said, "I was afraid. I thought no one would believe me." She held me close and whispered, "I will always believe you. You are my daughter. You are not alone." Later that evening, my mother spoke to my father. I stayed in the room while she told him. My father's face turned red with anger. His hands clenched into fists. He shouted, "How dare he! He is family, but he is a monster." My mother tried to calm him, but I saw the fire in his eyes. He looked at me and said, "Sarah, you did nothing wrong. Do not blame yourself." His words made me cry again, but this time I felt a little safe. The next day, my father called my grandmother into a private room. I sat outside, listening to voices rise and fall. My grandmother cried loudly when she heard the truth. "How can this be?" "Under my roof?" she said. I felt her pain through the wall. My father told her, "This cannot stay quiet. He must be punished." My grandmother agreed, but she also looked broken. That evening, my father went to find him. The house was busy with wedding guests, but my father's voice was louder than all others. He shouted his name and called him to the courtyard. Everyone stopped talking. The music went silent. My father stood tall, his face hard like stone. He pointed and said, "You are a disgrace. You tried to hurt my daughter." The boy's face turned pale. At first he denied it. He said, "No, uncle. I did nothing." She is lying. My body shook when I heard him. I wanted to scream, but my father stepped closer and said, "If you lie again, I will go to the police. Everyone will know what you did." The boy's eyes filled with fear. He looked down and whispered, "I am sorry." I lost control. The crowd gasped. My aunts and uncles looked shocked. Some people cried. Others whispered to each other. My father shouted again, "Sorry is not enough." "You will answer for this." My mother held my hand tightly. I felt safe by her side. My grandmother cried and said, "Take him away. He cannot stay here." That night the wedding house was no longer full of joy. The women whispered in the kitchen. The men spoke in angry voices. Some relatives tried to say, "Do not tell the police. It will bring shame." But my father stood firm. He said, "The shame is not ours. The shame is his. Silence will only hurt more girls." His words made me proud. I slept in my mother's arms that night. For the first time since the guest room, I felt I could rest. My mother stroked my hair and whispered, "You are safe now. We will protect you." Tears still fell from my eyes, but they were mixed with relief. The next morning, my father went to the police station. He told them everything. He filed a complaint. The officers listened carefully and promised to act. My father came back and said, "It has begun. He will not escape." My mother smiled at me gently. "You are brave, Sarah," she said. "You spoke, and now the truth is known." The wedding was no longer bright. The bride and groom still celebrated, but many guests left early. Some people looked at me with pity. Some whispered behind my back. I hated those looks. They made me feel small. But when I looked at my parents, I felt stronger. They stood with me. They believed me. At night, I thought about what happened. I remembered his words in the guest room. I remembered my fear. But I also remembered my father's strong voice in the courtyard. I remembered my mother's warm hug. I felt that maybe I could heal one day. I started writing again in my notebook. This time, my words were not only about fear, they were also about courage. I wrote, "I spoke. They believed me. I am not alone." Writing made me feel lighter. My diary became my friend. The days after were not easy. Some relatives tried to make my father stop the case. They said, "It will bring shame to the family. People will talk." But my father answered, "Let them talk. I will not hide the truth. My daughter's safety is more important." His courage gave me courage, too. At school, I stayed quiet. My friends asked, "Why are you so silent?" I only smiled and said, "I am fine." But inside, I was still fighting. I remembered everything again and again. Sometimes at night I woke up sweating. But when I heard my mother's voice near me, I felt safe again. One day, while I sat with my cousin who was only 9, I told her softly, "If anyone ever makes you feel bad, even if it is family, you must tell your parents, do not hide." She looked at me with wide eyes and said, "Will they believe me?" I held her hand and said, "Yes, they will. And even if they do not, you must keep telling until someone listens." Her smile gave me hope. Slowly, I began to see that my story could help others. I thought, Maybe if I speak, some other girl will speak too. Maybe she will not wait as long as I did. That thought made me stronger. The days after the wedding felt heavy. People still talked. Some looked at me with pity. Some looked with doubt. I hated those looks. But I remembered my father's words. The shame is not yours. It is his. Those words stayed in my heart. Weeks passed. The police came to speak with my father again. They asked questions. They asked me too. My hands shook as I told them the story. I was afraid, but my father sat beside me. He said, "Do not fear. Just tell the truth." I spoke slowly, telling them how he came into the room, how I felt, how I pushed him away. When I finished, the officer nodded and said, "You are brave." Later, they took him away for questions. I did not see him, but I heard from my father that he looked pale and weak. He tried to say sorry again. He tried to say it was a mistake. But my father told him, "This is not a mistake. This is a crime." Life did not return to normal quickly. At school, I found it hard to listen. My mind often went back to that night. I saw the door, the shadow, the fear. Sometimes I woke in the dark, my body shaking. But when I heard my mother's soft voice or my father's strong steps, I felt safe again. I began to write in my diary every day. I wrote about the fear. I wrote about my parents' love. I wrote about courage. Writing helped me breathe. It felt like I was not alone. The pages listened to me when no one else could. One evening, my father sat with me. He said, "Sarah, you are not weak. You are strong. Many girls stay silent, but you spoke. You should be proud." I looked at him and asked, "But people still whisper. They look at me as if I did something wrong." My father took my hand and said, "Let them whisper. Their words do not matter. You know the truth. You are innocent." My mother also reminded me each day. She said, "Do not hide your face. You did nothing wrong. Walk with your head high." Her words warmed me. Slowly, I started to believe them. Months passed. The case moved slowly, as cases often do. Some relatives said, "Stop now. Do not fight. It will break the family." But my father answered, "The family is not broken by truth. It is broken by silence." He never gave up. I admired him more than ever. When the day of the court came, I felt sick with fear. My father and mother went with me. In the court, I saw him again. He looked different now. His face was pale. His eyes were down. He was not the same boy who had smiled in the guest room. He looked small, weak, and afraid. The judge asked questions. I told my story again. My voice shook, but I kept speaking. My mother's hand was on my shoulder. My father stood strong beside me. I did not cry this time. I spoke clearly. The judge listened. The boy said nothing. He only looked at the floor. When we left the court, I felt lighter. I knew the fight was not finished, but I had faced him without fear. That was a victory for me. At home, I started to speak more openly. I told my younger cousins, "If anyone makes you feel wrong, you must speak. Even if it is family. Do not stay quiet. Some of them looked shocked. Some asked, "But what if no one believes us?" I told them, "The right people will believe. And if not, keep telling until someone listens." I also spoke to girls at school. Sometimes they whispered about men who stared at them or about being touched in crowded places. I told them softly, "You are not alone. Do not blame yourself. If you feel unsafe, speak." Their eyes showed fear, but also hope. Healing was not easy. Some nights I still cried. Some days I felt weak. But I also felt stronger each week. I studied harder. I wanted to build a future where I could stand tall, where I could never be broken again. One day, while writing in my diary, I realized something clear. I was not guilty. I had blamed myself for many nights, but it was never my fault. It was his choice, his action, his crime. That truth set me free. I forgave myself for staying silent in the beginning. I promised I would never blame myself again. My father often said, "Truth is a shield. Lies are a knife. Never fear the truth." I held on to those words. My mother often said, "Courage grows when we speak." I held on to those words too. Months later, when the case was strong, he was punished. I did not feel happy, but I felt justice. I did not hate him anymore. I only felt pity. He had destroyed his own life with his actions. But I also felt proud of myself. I was no longer the silent girl in the guest room. I was Sarah, who spoke, who fought, who survived. Now when I look back, I still feel the pain, but I also see the strength. I see my parents standing with me. I see myself speaking in court. I see myself telling other girls, "You are not weak. You are not guilty. You are brave." I was 17 when it happened. I am older now. I am still healing, but I am stronger. My story is not only about pain. It is about courage. It is about speaking when it is hard. It is about hope. To every girl who listens to me now, I want to say this: you are not alone. Do not hide your voice. If someone hurts you, speak. If someone makes you afraid, speak. Silence protects them. Speaking protects you. Your truth has power. And to every boy who listens, I want to say this: respect women. Do not see them as weak. Do not see them as bodies. Respect them as human, as equal, as important. A real man does not harm. A real man protects. We all go through hard times, but stories like this can help us feel seen. Thank you for watching, and come back for more real moments.